Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has soon been out for 1 year, and the DLC packs have been more and more impressive, with only third-party characters so far. But it looks like Sakurai has still much more to deliver when it comes to this massive experience. In particular, since this task of making Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for Nintendo's next system, back then the codename NX, now Nintendo Switch, was handed to him as a last mission from former Nintendo president Satoru Iwata. And together with me today is Rogersbase to go over some of the characters that might be included into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in 2020, that will say DLC Pack 5 and future DLC packs. But before we move over to the characters themselves, let's talk about this personal mission handed over as the last task from President Satoru Iwata to Mr. Sakurai.
Yeah, so I saw that quote on Twitter yesterday, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, this is why Sakurai is obviously working so hard on this game, because we know that at some point there's going to be another Smash Brothers game, and Sakurai has said time and time again that, you know what, this is going to be my last game. He said that during Brawl, he said that during Smash 4, and he's saying it again during Ultimate, but for this one, I really believe it when he says that he's giving it his all and he's trying to throw in as many worlds as possible, because, you know, this is a tribute to Iwata, basically, you know? He's giving us all these amazing characters, putting them all together in this one giant game as this, you know, amazing send-off for him. So, yeah, I think it's awesome.
Absolutely, and like Iwata and Sakurai share a connection and a work relationship all the way since the early 90s at HAL Laboratory.
Yep.
They worked on Kirby together, they worked on developing Super Smash Bros. Together, and it just makes sense for Sakurai to give this last tribute to President Iwata by making Ultimate the, well, kind of unlimited experience. That way, his legacy lives on through this game.
It is crazy, too, thinking about all the games that are in this, right, that Iwata had such a hand in, like Pokemon, Earthbound. Obviously, he was the president of Nintendo, so he had hand in pretty much every Nintendo franchise. But the ones that he was really dedicated to, you know, they all have some type of presence in Smash Bros. And I think, you know, moving forward, I don't know how many other characters that have close ties to Iwata they might be able to add outside of maybe like a balloon fighter. I guess there already is a balloon fight stage, but we'll talk about future DLC a little bit later.
Exactly. But let's begin talking about the DLC lineup we've had so far, because we've had pretty much only third parties, and so far the companies that have been represented in the DLC lineup for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has been Atlas through Joker, Square Enix through Hero, Luminary and all the other Dragon Quest heroes, Banjo-Kazooie through Rare and Microsoft, and now Terry Bogard through SNK. So which character or company do we believe will be represented in the last DLC Pack 5?
Sure. I am putting money on Koei Tecmo. I truly believe, especially now that we're going to get more DLC in the future, and I think there's a reason for why they didn't announce it as a pack. They didn't say, oh, we're getting another DLC pack, like a Challenger pack. They just said there's going to be additional DLC coming. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think for this DLC pack and for what they're going for with this first DLC pack, you know, just as you mentioned, we had Rare, we had, you know, Enix represented with Dragon Quest, Atlas with Persona, we have SNK with Terry. I think they are going to give us a Koei Tecmo character, and I think we are going to get Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden. And a big reason for that is Koei Tecmo has a great relationship with Nintendo. They're one of the only third parties that has made a Metroid game, they've made a Zelda game, they've made 2 Fire Emblem games, and I think because of that relationship and their close ties, it just makes sense for them to put a Koei Tecmo character in here. And I do think, like I said, that every single one of these characters from Challenger Pack 1 are going to be from different third parties that haven't already had a rep. And you could argue Square Enix, but again, as you'd mentioned earlier, that's more on the Enix side of Square than the Square side, which we already had represented with Cloud.
Yeah, because when we look at the time span of the development of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and how Koei Tecmo became kind of a second-party partner for Nintendo, they co-align in a large extent.
Yeah.
Both when it comes to Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, and then also with Three Houses,
right.
Because they pretty much developed that game as well with help from intelligence systems who in many ways handed over development to them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Fatal Frame originally started as a Koei Tecmo franchise and is now a Nintendo franchise, but it wasn't always that way to begin with. It was very similar to, the Xenosaga franchise with Monolith Soft, and then when Monolith Soft was picked up by Nintendo, now we have Xenoblade, but Cosmos is in this weird area where she might be a first-party character, she might be a second-party character, we really don't know who owns the rights.
So we have a long history to build up on when it comes to all of this. Like, Atlas, no doubt, it was... Sakurai's fanboying pretty much when it comes to the Persona franchise that he really wanted to put it in.
And I would argue the same thing for Terry as well. I think a lot of people were sort of blindsided by that SNK announcement, and people were like, really, of all the companies? But it makes sense if you know Sakurai, and again, you know the relationship with Nintendo that they've had, because Sakurai has mentioned on numerous occasions he loves the King of Fighters franchise, and I do think, when Sakurai made that tweet, whenever it was, like a year and a half ago, where he was like, I just want you guys to know Nintendo chose the characters, I didn't. I feel like he made that tweet specifically for Terry because he didn't want any backlash for choosing one of his favorite characters. Because I truly believe that was all up to Sakurai. I think Nintendo might have said, we want an SNK rep, but I think he's the reason Terry's in the game.
So, which other characters then Ninja Gaiden could make it in?
I mean, you could get a Dead or Alive character. I could maybe see them throwing in... a character from another one of Koei's franchises, but I feel really solid that it's going to be Ryu Hayabusa. The only other one I could think of in terms of like a new world that would be in the game, not necessarily a new third party, but a new world that isn't represented, at least for this first fighter pack. I could see Lloyd from Tales of Symphonia, because Namco is one of the only third parties that's in the game that has been in multiple games that only has one rep. Konami has 3, Capcom has 3, Sega has 3 as well, if you count Atlas. So I think it would make sense for them to maybe put another Bandai character in there. Like I said, maybe Lloyd from Tales, or, and since we have Terry in there already, it'd be cool to have maybe Heihachi or somebody from Tekken, to then have King of Fighters, Tekken, and Street Fighter represented all in one Smash Brothers game. It'd be kind of neat. But I really think the other characters that we might see, even if they are third party, would be separate DLC and not part of this original fighter pack. I know the big one everybody's talking about is Sora, right? Everybody thinks it would be insane if Sora was in the game, but I think Sora would be more likely as an individual fighter than a fighter pack fighter, and we can get into that a little bit later.
Absolutely. And while we are on the topic of the 5th DLC pack when it comes to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and the fighter pass we currently have, could we still see a Nintendo character just to cap it off, or do you think it will all be third parties?
No, I think it'll all be third party. Yeah, I feel very strongly about that.
So you think they're saving the Nintendo characters for the future?
I do.
DLC?
I do. Because I think if you look at the way they did this first Challenger pack, right? Every character had a stage, had spirits, had music, and then the character themselves. And I think that was sort of to flesh out those characters in the world of Smash Brothers, because they were worlds that weren't already represented yet, right? There weren't spirits for a lot of those characters. Whereas I think if they add like another Mario character, or they add like Bandana D or something, like another character from an existing franchise, even if it's maybe a new character from or like Monster Hunter even, for example. Monster Hunter's already got Rathalos in the game. They already have him as a boss. There's already Monster Hunter music. I think they really did want to put in stuff that wasn't already in the game at all, and then the characters that already have things in the game will be built upon with the additional DLC fighters.
Indeed, and Capcom has not had any representation so far, so it kind of makes sense when you think about it.
You mean they haven't had any representation so far in this Fighter Pass?
In this Fighter Pass, yes.
Exactly, because we already have Street Fighter, we already have Mega Man, and so there's already a lot of different places if they were going to add another Capcom character, they could put the music from those Capcom franchises. Of course, like, you know me, I would love if they added Phoenix Wright as one of these, DLC Fighter Pack characters, and he comes with a stage and he comes with music. But also, we have to remember, these additional fighters that they're going to add in the future, they haven't given any guidelines for. So some of these fighters might be like how the Sans Me costume was, or maybe they come with a piece of music. Maybe some of those fighters will come with the stage. Like, we really don't know, and I think that's the exciting thing about it, is there's really no guidelines. So now if they say, okay, let's throw in Geno, for example, well, we don't need, another Mario stage. We don't need like a Forest Maze stage, but they could maybe put in Geno and then like the Forest Maze music and then sell that as like one individual fighter. But again, we wouldn't need a stage, we wouldn't need spirits because there's already so much Mario stuff in the game already. Whereas, again, something like Phoenix Wright, for example, well, that's a world that isn't already in the game, but Capcom is represented. So they can maybe put the music on a Capcom stage. Maybe they can give us a stage. Maybe they would give us, just the character. Who really knows? Or Monster Hunter is another good example of that as well. Maybe they could like boost up that plane where you fight Rathalos to a full-fledged stage and then give us like another additional Monster Hunter track. There's really no rules for this new individual DLC. And again, I think that's what really opens up the doors to first-party characters, to characters we didn't think would make it in until the next mainline Smash Brothers game, characters like Geno, characters like Sora. I think Sora is another really good example, right? Because I cannot imagine the legal hoops they would have to jump through to get a Kingdom Hearts stage, to get Kingdom Hearts music, to get, even Sora in as a character. His Keyblade has the Mickey Mouse logo on the chain of the Keyblade. I think if Sora was going to get into the game, and it seems at this point, anything's possible. Sakurai's put in pretty much everybody at this point. If they were going to put Sora into the game, it would make sense to me that it would be as an individual DLC fighter, maybe without a stage, maybe without music even. But they would put the fighter in, and that Sora would have a design that's specific for Smash Brothers. Because I don't know if we've talked about this before, I feel like we have, but the way that the rights work for Sora is that Square Enix owns the right to the designs of the character. So anything Nomura created in the world of Kingdom Hearts, they have the rights to. But Disney has the rights to the characters themselves. So it's only the designs of the characters that Square Enix has the rights to. So everything still needs to be approved and go through Disney. Whereas they could loop through that by having Nomura design a Sora outfit for Smash Brothers that isn't used for a Kingdom Hearts game. So I think that might be their one workaround for getting Sora in Smash and not having to go through Disney and not including any Disney properties.
Obviously, Sora is a character that has been asked for by many. We see Sora showing up when it comes to the characters demanded in Europe, in America, and also in Japan. And this is based on recent polling at 2chan, where they used a few thousand votes just to see how kind of the trend is for the different characters. And we can see that Sora is the only character that really shows up in all three brackets.
And we also saw that there was the Twitter poll that somebody made, the replies to the Terry and More DLC announcement, and somebody did the very similar poll where they took the replies for each country, and Sora was at the very top for all three regions. So across the board, in multiple polls in different countries of different countries, Sora is still the one character that really crosses international borders. So I do feel like Sakurai is aware of that. And again, even if it wasn't initially planned as one of these DLC passes, I think he's going to do his best to try and include Sora as a standalone individual character in the future.
Okay, the next DLC character that I would like to bring up is one of the, what would I call them? Early icons, maybe. And then I think like the early platforming icons. And the two that come to mind to me are Crash Bandicoot and Rayman. Do you think we could see any of those two make it in as DLC?
I'm gonna say something maybe controversial when it comes to Rayman. I don't think Rayman would be a playable fighter. One, because he's already a spirit in the game, and he's a pretty notable spirit. It's like one of the more iconic spirit battles from World of Light. But additionally, I think if we were gonna get a Ubisoft representative, I don't think it would be Rayman. I think if it was anyone from the quote-unquote Rayman franchise, it would probably be a Rabbids, considering Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I could see them maybe throwing Peach Rabbit in. But if we weren't going to get a Rabbids, but we were still gonna get a Ubisoft rep, I think maybe somebody from Assassin's Creed would be a little bit more likely. Like, we're talking about Ubisoft rep, but I actually don't even think that's likely at all. I don't think we're gonna get anything Ubisoft in the game.
What about Activision though? They own both Spyro and Crash Bandicoot.
So Crash, I feel, is more and more likely as time goes on, but I could see them including Crash, not necessarily for the history that Crash has on Nintendo platforms, but for the history that, because Crash is an important character to Europe and to North America. But in every single one of these 2chan polls that we've seen, or the Twitter polls, Japan doesn't care about Crash or Spyro at all. I think that would definitely be a character for the Western fans, similar to Banjo-Kazooie. But then again, Banjo-Kazooie was still requested in Japan. That was still a character people in Japan wanted, whereas nobody in Japan really asks for Crash. But I do think it would be really cool to have Crash in the game to sort of show PlayStation All-Stars that, hey, we have a better PlayStation All-Star lineup than you guys did. We have Cloud, we have Snake, we have Crash Bandicoot, we have Ryu, you know. So I think that would be kind of interesting for them to do that. But I also don't think Crash is particularly likely. For as much as people want it, I do think it's going to be more Japan-focused third-party characters that are very popular in Japan that also have major popularity in North America, similar to, you know, Geno and Sora. I think those kind of characters seem more likely to me. But who knows? Honestly, at this point, anything goes.
So are there any Japanese characters that you really think could make it in now beyond the DLC pack?
Yeah, I think 2B has a really good shot. I think 2B has a really, really good shot from Nier. I think it all depends on whether or not Nier is going to get ported to the Switch. But even if it doesn't, I mean, if you look at the relationship that Platinum has with Nintendo, and that Square has with Nintendo now, I feel like 2B is just a character that has a lot of international appeal. People love that character in Japan. The music options would be amazing for 2B. And I think a lot of people would just love to see it. So we talked about Lloyd a little bit from Tales of Symphonia as well. I think now that Sans is a Mii Fighter costume, I think Frisk isn't completely out of the realm of possibility. I think that could still happen. Be neat to have Frisk in the game. And then a Monster Hunter, like we brought up earlier as well. I think there's a pretty high chance for Monster Hunter being in the game. But I want to say this, I think if we get a Monster Hunter, I would really want both male and female skins. I don't want them to just throw in like one male Monster Hunter. I think if they're going to do Monster Hunter, go all out, give them a bunch of unique armor sets.
So you think pretty much like Pokemon Trainer?
Yeah, I think a lot like Pokemon Trainer. Even more, I think like a mix of Pokemon Trainer and Hero if they're gonna do it, right? Where you get like a Zinogre armor set, you'd get like a Rathalos armor set, you'd get maybe two of the other iconic, maybe like Brachiodos or maybe Lagiacrus, since that was a game like launched on Wii. Maybe get like those four as armor sets and then have like male and female versions of both would be really neat.
And the classic mode for that thing is already writing itself because you already have Rathalos, you have the music,
exactly. Yeah.
I think we're forgetting about one company when talking about all these DLC fighters, and that is Bandai Namco.
Yes. So we talked a little bit about Lloyd and we talked a little bit about Heihachi, but I still think there are a lot of other options for a Namco character in Smash. But what are your ideas?
Well, I'm thinking a little bit in the direction of Soul Calibur, since there's a little bit of a history there with Nintendo.
I think Soul Calibur would be sick. Maybe add like Nightmare or Sophitia. That'd be really cool. Put Yoda and Darth Vader in there. Yeah, no, Soul Calibur would be great. Isn't 2B in Soul Calibur? See, throw 2B in there and it'd be a double representative of Soul Calibur and Nier.
Exactly, another character we also know about is Geralt the Witcher, but I know that he's very much demanded in Europe, especially the eastern part of the continent.
Yeah.
But now with the Switch Complete Edition, you never know. That's the thing. One thing that Sakurai needs to put into regard when it comes to all of these characters is the history, kind of connection with Nintendo, and their, iconic status.
Yeah,
because Cloud was not on a Nintendo system before, but he got in because of his iconic status.